The chamber of the Galactic Council was built to stop fear. Its walls were a circle of living crystal grown from a mountain on a moon no one remembered. And it was said that the crystal drank panic from the air and turned it into calm light. Today the light shook. The floor trembled like a ship's deck in a storm. Whisper after whisper after whisper ran around the circle, and the whispers were not small. They were the sound of whole civilizations trying to breathe. Delegates stood. Stood again. Cloaks hissed. Armor clicked. Eyes that had watched centuries went wide like the eyes of new children. 1,000 banners hung above them, and none of them looked like victory. News had crossed the stars faster than light this week, because news, like this, always finds a way to move faster than any law of physics. Fleets had fallen. Colonies had burned. Worlds that once glowed like jewels now flickered like stones at the bottom of a river. Entire empires had bent their flags and placed them on the floor and knelt to something no one dared to name. Spread like a sickness from system to system, from station to station, and wherever it went. There was a gap where voices used to be. The speaker's hammer struck 3 times. The sound went up into the crystal walls and came back as a low, steady note. And for a moment the room remembered how to hold still. "The session begins," the speaker said, but the voice cracked. A Valri delegate named Threx rose. The Valri were tall and scaled and had never bent for anyone. Their history was one long list of battles, won by patience. Threx should have sounded like iron. He did not. "My sisters at Arizi 3 send this report," he swallowed. "We lost contact at midday. The status is unreadable. There is no debris field. There is no radiation spike. The station cameras show people running, and then the cameras show nothing. We sent a second probe. It turned back." A Thren archivist named Loom spoke next. The Thren recorded everything. If something happened in the galaxy, there was a Thren who could pull it out of memory and lay it on a table for all to see.
Albums.
Fingers tapped the rim of her console with the light rhythm used for funeral lines. "It is the same at Kellis, at Mainder, at the border towns of the Greek Alliance." Pattern repeats. First, a rumor of light seen far from the plane of the ecliptic where no ship should be. Then a loss of power. Then the broadcast of one single tone. Very low. Not a human voice. Not machine. Not nature. Then the void. No one said the name. No one said any name. It felt safer to talk about weather than to talk about the thing that had made entire skyways go dark. The delegates used phrases like the unseen power, the quiet shadow, the unmarked presence. One old admiral from the Keth Union simply called it. He was braver than most, and it still cost him a breath to say the word. A holoscreen opened above the central dais and played a loop of a cargo run to Hest Prime. A ship floated across a trade lane. Lights blinked on the control tower. The ship's captain laughed at something the engineer said. A shadow passed across the camera, as if a massive craft had moved between the sun and the station. But there was nothing there on the mass scanners. And after the shadow, there was the tone, low and long, like a giant heartbeat under the skin of the universe. The captain's eyes widened. The engineer stood. The image shook. Then the recording ended, not with a cut, not with a burst of static, but with a blank page of existence, like someone had simply removed 12 seconds of reality and set the tape back down. The speaker tried again. "We must place our remaining fleets where they will do the most good. We must secure food routes and refugee corridors. We must call Earth," someone said. The word fell into the chamber. Like a stone into a quiet river, the ripples ran outward. Heads turned, hands flexed. "We have called," Loom the archivist said softly. "We have called for 100 years. We called in war and in peace. We called when we were starved for metal and when we were heavy with it. Called the year the Targ storms melted the shields of the southern arm. The answer was the same. It had been 10,000 years since the council first lifted its banner. It had been almost that long since humans had attended a session. They were old in their power and old in their anger. They had given great gifts and terrible warnings. Once, long ago, they had saved a sector from an extinction weapon by arriving with 20 ships that each looked like a city. And they had turned those weapons off like a parent lifts a hand from a stove. Another time they had burned their own colony to stop a plague that would have eaten half the stars, and they had done it without asking permission. The council had learned to leave Earth alone and to be thankful when Earth left them alone in return. Admiral Corrin of the Keth Union stood, his crest trembled. If there is an enemy the rest of us cannot touch, we must at least ask if the Terrans will answer. We send a courier vector now. What do we lose? Zaid leaned close. We could lose their anger. We may already be dead, Corran said, very quietly. If I die, I would rather die with the chance that someone stronger is awake. Across the chamber, a small figure rose from a seat almost beneath the speaker's platform. She was not a delegate. She wore no banner. She wore black. When she lifted her head, every eye saw the badge at her throat, the simple shape of a tree with many roots and many branches. A keeper of treaties. The room went very still. We can send, of course, the keeper said. Her voice was careful, like a person guiding a torch across dry grass. But the last treaty with Earth asks us to consider our reasons, the Terrans answered once. When the galaxy cried out and when they were done, they said, do not summon us to fight your family. Quarrels. Build your own walls. Train your own hands. If we return, it will be for a reason that has weight enough to crack a world. Loom's fingers paused their funeral rhythm. Keeper, she said, does this reason have enough weight? The keeper did not answer. She looked up at the holoscreen where the cargo run loop still played, where the shadows still moved, where the heartbeats sounded again and again in a room that should have been stronger than sound. I am afraid we know. Longer measure weight, she said. We measure what is left to save. The chamber emptied into committees and crisis boards and long tables spread with star maps. Runners carried messages down bright halls that had always been too long and today were much, much too short. Someone sent a courier toward the edge of the Orion Arm, because old records said that humans like to hide their forts in places where the sky looks thin and cold. Someone else opened old files with names that were not spoken aloud. So Luna, Archangel, Fleet Command, and each file opened to a blank page that said the same thing. Connection refused. On a small world made of red rock and thin air. A farmer named Oshel stood on the roof of his house and watched the night. He had never been to space. He did not need to go. Space came to him. The rim of the sky hummed like a wire. Lights slid across the darkness and then swallowed each other and then went out. Oshel had a radio his grandfather had used to call the valley during storms. He turned it on and listened. He expected music, whether jokes from people who were not good at jokes. He heard the tone. It was soft, almost kind, like the sound a mother makes to hush a child. He felt his hands go cold as if someone had placed ice on his wrists. He turned the radio off and then on, and the tone was still there. He would remember for the rest of his life the way the cows did not move and the dog did not bark. On another world, metal and glass and tall bridges over blue water, a schoolteacher named Mara lost 3 students in a hallway. They walked with her from the classroom to the library door, and when she turned to say, "Remember your gloves," they were simply not there. There was no scream. There was no dropped book. She stood very still and then ran. And her feet made sounds that did not bounce back from the walls. The council collected stories like this by the thousands. They laid them out. They tried to fold them into patterns that made sense. But the patterns did not hold because the thing in the dark did not move in lines. It moved in empty spaces. It moved in the gaps between breaths. On the 3rd day, Scout Flotilla set a course for the dark edge of the Orion Arm. They were volunteers from 4 different nations because no single flag wanted to take the blame if this went wrong, and also because courage is easier when it is shared. The scout leader was called Talar Vor. He was born on a station that spun forever above a blue world, and he liked the way black space looked when seen through wide windows. He said yes to dangerous missions because dangerous missions meant open, glass and empty sky. Talar's 4 ships were small, fast, and built to sea. They carried more sensors than weapons. They were old craft, but their crews were the kind who could make old things sing. They left the capital with a blessing from the speaker and a plain packet from the keeper of treaties that held the old codes used when a message had to find Earth. Talar pocketed the packet and did not look at it again. He told his crew the same thing he always told them before a long jump. Eat now, sleep if you can, check everything twice, and then check it again. They crossed 3 lanes that were empty when they should have been busy. They passed a listening post that answered with a half-finished sentence and the echo of its own voice. They threaded a maze of dust and rock where silent beacons blinked, red like tired eyes. Once, far off their port side, a light flickered where no star chart listed anything. "What is that?" the navigator asked. "A beacon?" "No," said the sensor officer. "A reflection of what?" No one answered. At the edge of council space, they found a buoy installed by the Thren 1,000 years ago to mark the border of known lanes. Its code greeting was simple and polite. "Welcome, traveler. This is the last safe light." Beyond this point, the sky is uncharted. Someone had carved 4 words into the buoy's skin. Talar leaned close to the feed and read them out loud. "We will return." Below the words was a symbol, a split circle with 3 stars inside it. None of the crew admitted they knew it. All of them did. They jumped again into a dark region that some maps labeled the Quiet Sea. It had always been quieter than other places. Now it felt like the quiet after a shout you wish you could take back. "Power steady," said the engineer. "Receiving." "Nothing," said the comms chief. And the way she said nothing made it sound like a new kind of weather. Tala tightened his harness. "Bring up the long-range lattice. Look for heat that shouldn't be there. Look for lines that don't belong. Look for mistakes. Because the universe is lazy and leaves fingerprints, and whatever's doing this can't be perfect." They searched. For a day, and then for another. They slept in short turns and woke with the taste of metal in their mouths. On the second night, the sensor officer whispered, "I have something." And no one spoke for 3 heartbeats, because sometimes if you wait a moment, the good thing goes away, and then you do not have to change your life. "It is faint." "The officer said, "It is regular. It is not a star. It is not drift. It is not a beacon from any of the known lists. It repeats every 19 seconds, in groups of 3, and the third pulse is always stronger." She looked at Talar. It sounds like a heart." The comms chief looked at her screen until her eyes turned red. "It is not the tone," she said at last, and everyone relaxed by a finger's width. The tone had become the definition of fear. Anything else was almost kindness. Dollar said, "Plotted." They plotted. The pulses came from a point that lay beyond even the darkest edges of any line the council used. There were no shipping lanes there. There were no outposts. It was only cold, thin space with old dust and older rock and the weak light of forgotten stars. They went as they crossed. The empty span, the pulses grew stronger. They still sounded like a heart. They sounded like a heart that was waking from sleep and did not yet remember its name. Their ships trembled to the rhythm. "Stop," Talar said. His voice was calm, but his hands were not. "Hold position. Bring up full spectrum. If there is a stealth field, we may catch its edge." For a long minute, there was only the faint hiss of the air system. The hard click of a relay, the soft sound people make when they do not notice they are praying. Then the sensor officer breathed in fast. "There," she said. "At bearing Tawan 4. A refraction. A bend in nothing. Not natural. Magnify." The screen bloomed. At first it looked like a smudge of smoke at the edge of a lens. Then the smudge took a shape. It was long and low and heavy at the center, and it cast a shadow. That should not have been possible at this distance. Lines traced themselves across its skin like light running along rivers. The pulses matched the flicker of those lines. 3 soft, 1 strong, 3 soft, 1 strong, and with each strong beat the refraction grew a little thinner. "Is it a ship?" The navigator whispered. "Is it a world?" "It is both," the comms chief said, "because the brain sometimes says strange things when the eyes do not know what they see." Tala did not speak. He did not need to. The symbol carved on the old buoy hung in his mind like a sun, split circle, and 3 stars. He had seen it once in a book the Thren kept locked behind light. He had read the note under it. Terran Fleet Command Supercarrier Class, Obsidian Line. He had been a child then, and had not believed the numbers that followed. Those numbers came back to him now, and for the first time in his adult life, he wanted them to be wrong. "Send the passive packet," he said quietly at last. "Do not ping. Do not speak. Just listen. If there is an answer, it will come." They sent the old codes. They were not words. They were shapes in radio and turns. A phase across bands so wide that only human engineers had once played there. The packet flew like a paper boat into a deep river. The thing in the dark did not answer. But the pulses changed. 3 soft. 1 strong. 3 soft. 1 stronger. The refraction thinned like mist before morning. It did not vanish. It settled into a clear outline that no one could argue with anymore. It was a ship. It was not moving, and yet everything around it was. Its hull was black, but it did not drink light, turned light into lines. Its edges looked like old mountains. It wore no banner. It had no name printed on its skin. It did not need one. Record Talar said, because when your mouth is dry, you say the simple things. Timestamp, coordinates, relative speed, angle of weight, the sensor officer said. Her voice went thin. There are more. More what? More refractions. Not 1, not 2, many. She swept the feed left, right, down, up. The screen filled with places where nothing bent the wrong way. The pulses were not a single heart after all. They were a choir. 3 soft, 1 strong. 3 soft, 1 strong. Somewhere in the quiet sea of space, 1,000 sleeping things were breathing in time. The Cums chief lifted her hands from the board as if it were hot. "Should we run?" "No," Talar said. "We thought of the farmers and teachers and children in corridors where..." Echoes did not come back. He thought of the tone that ate voices, thought of the words on the old buoy we will return and of the keeper's careful face. "No, we send what we see. We send to the council. We send to anyone who will listen. We send to Earth again." Packet went out. It carried coordinates, ranges, amplitudes, waveforms, and the smell of fear that hides under math. It carried the image of a black hull with light running along its skin like rivers. It carried the rhythm that sounded like power turning over in its sleep. On the capital world, Bloom the archivist watched the first frames arrive. She stood without meaning to. Her chair rolled back and struck the wall. Speaker stopped talking and stared at the screen. The keeper's hands closed on the edge of the table until her knuckles went white. No one said the name. They did not need to. Across the broken stars, surrender flags hung in halls that used to hold laughter. The galaxy felt the air change. Somewhere near the dark edge of the Orion Arm, where maps end and old promises live, big, massive. Unknown signals pulsed in the void like the sound of a giant waking up and taking a first long breath. The message reached the council. Chambers like thunder rolling across a dead plain. At first no one believed it. Scouts often saw ghosts in the void, phantoms made of static, echoes of dead suns, tricks of gravity bending light in strange ways. But this was not a ghost. This was not static. This was not an echo. The report came with numbers too sharp to ignore, images too solid to dismiss, and a rhythm too alive to mistake. 3 soft pulses. 1 strong. Again. Again. Like the beat of a heart. The council sat in silence as the recording played for the 10th time. No one asked for it to stop. No one breathed too loudly. The giant hall that once echoed with debates, laughter, and wars of words now felt like a tomb. Loom, the Thren archivist, placed her pale hands on the table. This cannot be faked. I have checked the metadata, the timestamps, the gravitational signatures. This is real. It came from the quiet sea. Impossible, Admiral Karan growled. His voice carried the weight of centuries of war. No fleet could sleep for 10,000 years. No fleet could hide this long, unless... He stopped. his throat tightening, unless it was built to hide. The speaker adjusted the robes at his chest, his face pale. What are we saying here? Are we claiming these signals are human? The word human cracked across the chamber like glass breaking. Delegates flinched. Others lowered their eyes. The Valerie representative Threx bared his scaled teeth. You speak it so carelessly, speaker. Do you forget what happened the last time humanity stirred? Do you forget what they left behind? The chamber filled with whispers again. 1,000 memories rose like shadows. Old records told of humanity's fury, their burning fleets, their refusal to bend, their power to strike at empires that thought themselves untouchable. When Earth fought, it was never half measures. It was storms that tore through everything. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, humanity had fallen silent. No explanations, no diplomacy, no more wars, no more council seats, just silence. That silence had lasted longer than most species' lifetimes. Generations were born and died under stars where the humans had left nothing but rumors and old scars. Until now. Far away from the capital, in the ruins of a shattered world, a warlord lay dying. He was old, older than the banners he commanded, older than the weapons he still wore at his side. His chest was torn by fire, his blood black on the sand. Around him, the smoke of his empire's last fleet drifted into the poisoned air. He turned to his second in command, a young soldier shaking with fear. With his last breath, the warlord spoke words that would echo across the stars. They are awake, he whispered, his voice breaking. The Terrans are awake. Then his eyes closed, and his empire ended. The soldier fled, carrying those words. And by the time he reached a refugee ship, the story had spread like fire. Across stations, colonies, and broken fleets, voices whispered in terror. The Terrans are awake. The council tried to hold order. It tried to demand evidence, to call for logic, to restrain panic. But the galaxy was already trembling. Reports came from traders, smugglers, and refugees. Lights moving where no lights should be. Tones heard across channels that were supposed to be empty. Strange refractions that made starlight bend wrong. Everywhere the same rhythm. 3 soft pulses, 1 strong. And behind it all, the same question. If one Terran ship could do this, what would happen when the fleet awakens? Admiral Curran stood in the chamber, slamming his fist onto the table. I cannot sit in fear. If the Terrans are moving, then we must know their intent. Do they rise as our allies, or as our executioners? The keeper of treaties, robed in black, lifted her head slowly. The last treaty with Earth said this: if we return, it will not be for quarrels. It will be for silence too deep to ignore. Her eyes scanned the trembling delegates. Look around you. Is this not silence? Is this not the collapse of everything we built? The chamber went quiet. The speaker lowered his head. No one argued. On the edge of council space, a listening station caught something it was never meant to hear. The station was old, its crew tired, its equipment patched with more rust than metal. But in the middle of a long night, when the crew nearly slept at their posts, the console lit up. The operator rubbed his eyes. That can't be right. What is it? Asked his captain. The operator frowned. Signal long range, but not from any known beacon. It's repeating. The sound filled the room. It was rough, old, and broken, as if the signal had been traveling for thousands of years, but beneath the distortion was something unmistakable. 3 soft pulses. 1 strong. The crew froze. Origin. The captain demanded. The operator's hands shook over the controls. Coordinates. Edge of the Orion Arm. The Quiet Sea. Sir, it's not alien code. It's human. The council reviewed the intercepted signal with cold dread. Old records were pulled from archives so deep they smelled of dust. Codes that had not been used for 10 millennia were compared. The match was undeniable. It was Terran. And worse, it was Terran military. This was not. A call to us, Loom whispered, her face pale as death. It was a call to themselves. The chamber erupted. Oh, what do you mean themselves? "It is a rallying code," she said, trembling. "An awakening order. It is meant for their fleet." A silence fell again, heavier, thicker, like a shroud. Over every voice, the keeper of treaties whispered the words no one wanted to hear. "They are not asking for help. They are calling each other." Solarvor's scouts had seen it first. They had sent the data. Now, after weeks of silence, their final transmission reached the capital. The image played across the holoscreen, the black outline of a ship too vast to measure. Light crawled along its hull in rivers. The rhythm beat in the background, steady and endless. Then the image zoomed out. One ship became two. Two became 10. 10 became a horizon. They were not looking at a ship. They were looking at a fleet. The delegates stared, their faces drained of color. Some whispered prayers. Others gripped their chairs so tightly their claws cracked. And then the final line of the transmission burned itself into every mind. Unknown fleet detected. Class: Terran. Estimated size: thousands. The recording ended in static. Across the galaxy, the whispers grew into cries. Refugees spoke of shadows moving through the void. Miners reported strange tremors beneath asteroids. Merchant convoys swore they saw ships that blinked in and out of existence like ghosts. Everywhere, the same phrase spread: "The humans have returned," but no one knew if humanity came to save them or to bury them. The council sat in terrified silence. Some demanded surrender before the Terrans even appeared. Others shouted for war, claiming humanity must not be allowed to rise again. But then the lights in the chamber flickered. A low hum rolled across the floor. Every console lit with the same signal at once. 3 soft pulses. 1 strong. The speaker's eyes widened. "It is not just a fleet, it is a command." "From where?" Coran demanded. The keeper of treaties closed her eyes. "Not from where," she said softly. "From who?" On the edge of the Orion Arm, deep in the quiet sea, something vast was stirring. The old silence of Earth was breaking. Humanity was not answering the galaxy's cries. Humanity was answering its own. The galaxy had always laughed at stories of humans, stories of their ships, stories of their wars, stories of their refusal to kneel. The council claimed those were myths, exaggerated tales told by old captains who wanted their scars to mean more than they did. Younger species, those born long after Earth fell silent, mocked the idea of a fleet so powerful it could end empires. And yet, when the first Terran signal spread across the void, 3 soft pulses, 1 strong, the laughter ended. On the edge of the Orion Arm, where the dark sea of stars shimmered with faint light, an alien fleet gathered. Destroyers from the Valri, frigates from the Thren, cruisers from the Keth Union. They came not out of courage, but out of fear. "If these signals are Terran," Admiral Vale of the Valri hissed, his scales gleaming under cold starlight, "then we must crush them before they rise. 1 human ship is nothing. 100 are nothing if we strike early. They will be too weak to resist." The captains around him nodded, but none spoke with confidence. Every word was wrapped in unease. They had seen the recordings, the dark refractions, the black hulls, stirring in the void, but fear often hides itself behind arrogance. And so they sharpened their weapons and told themselves they would erase the humans before the, council even had to worry. 1 ship. That was all the scouts had reported as active. Just 1. How hard could it be? The fleet waited in silence, hidden in the shadows of broken asteroids. Their sensors swept the void, searching for anything unusual. At first they saw nothing. Then the stars bent. It was not cloaking. It was not stealth. It was something older, something stranger. As if space itself was folding to make way for what was coming. The alien captains leaned forward in their chairs, hearts pounding. "There," whispered the Keth commander. "Contact, bearing 241. The void rippled once, and it tore open, and a ship stepped through. It was not large by modern standards. It's not compared to the colossal dreadnoughts the council fielded in their glory days. But it was different. Its hull was black, yet it glowed with faint silver veins that pulsed like blood through living metal. Its design was angular, brutal, efficient. Every line screamed of war, not beauty. And at its prow, etched into the steel like a scar, was the mark that had haunted the galaxy for centuries, a split circle with 3 stars inside it. The crest of Terran Fleet Command. The alien crews froze, their sensors filled with data readings that made no sense. Power levels too high to measure. Heat signatures that spiked and vanished like ghosts. Weapons, systems that seemed both offline and primed at the same time. Admiral Vale forced a hiss. One ship. Just one. We have a dozen destroyers. Engage. The Valerie destroyers surged forward, engines burning bright. Cannons roared, spitting beams of plasma hot enough to melt. Moons. The void lit up with fire. The Terran ship did not move. The shot struck its hull. Explosions blossomed against the black steel. Alarms screamed across alien ships as their captains cheered, thinking the humans were weaker than the legends claimed. But then the fire cleared. The ship was untouched. Not a scratch. The hull shimmered faintly, as if it had simply absorbed the energy. The alien captain's blood ran cold. What? What is that armor? The Thren commander whispered. Before anyone could answer, the Terran ship moved, its weapons lit. Not slowly, not with warning, but all at once. Blue-white beams erupted from its sides, carving through the void with precision no machine should have. One Valerie destroyer vanished in a single strike, cut in half, its pieces spinning away like broken toys. Another exploded before its crew could even scream. The alien fleet opened fire again, desperately trying to overwhelm it with sheer volume. Missiles streaked. Cannons flared. Torpedoes screamed through the dark. The Terran ship answered with silence. And then, in less than 30 seconds, half the fleet was gone. Panic filled the channels. Shields failing. Engines gone, they're inside our systems. My weapons just shut down. The Terran ship did not just destroy. It hacked. It burned. It blinded. It struck in ways no alien commander could predict. The Keth Admiral shouted over the chaos, his voice trembling, "Fall back. Form a line, do not let it through." But there was no line. There was no order. Ships fled in every direction, each one trying to escape the storm. And still, the Terran ship advanced. Then, without warning, every comm channel lit up. Every screen, every speaker. Every console flickered with static hand, then a voice. It was human. Cold. Calm. Clear. "This is Terran Fleet Command." The word struck harder than any weapon. "We're told not to come here. You were told the silence was not yours to break. This is your only warning. Turn back, or you will share their fate." The channel cut. The alien crew sat, frozen. Some wept openly. Others whispered prayers to gods who had never answered. Admiral Vale, too proud to retreat, ordered one last strike. "All ships fire everything. Do not let them think us cowards." But his words died as the Terran ship unleashed its true weapon. Single lance of light erupted from its core, bright as a star, sharp as a blade. It swept across the battlefield once, and in that single sweep, every alien ship except 3 were gone. Entire crews erased in less than a heartbeat. The survivors fled without shame. They did not send reports, they did not send excuses. They only ran, leaving behind wreckage, silence, and fear. When the council received the recordings, their chamber fell into chaos. Delegates screamed at each other. Some demanded humanity be declared a threat to all life. Others argued no one should. Provoke them further. But none could deny what they had seen. One ship. One human ship. And it had erased an entire fleet. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like fire. The Terrans were awake. Their warships had returned, and the galaxy asked the question no one wanted to answer. If one ship could do this, what happens? When the fleet arrives, the answer was coming. Because deep in the quiet sea, more signals stirred. 3 soft pulses. 1 strong. Again. The heart of humanity's war fleet was beating. and the silence of 10,000 years was about to shatter. The galaxy could not sleep. For weeks, the same phrase circled across colonies, stations, fleets like a fever dream. One Terran battleship destroyed an entire armada. Whispers grew into terror. Merchants refused to cross trade lanes. Miners abandoned asteroids. Refugees fled into council space, carrying broken tales of black ships appearing out of nowhere, striking with blinding light, and then fading back into the void. And through it all, the signal never stopped. 3 soft pulses, 1 strong, over and over. The heartbeat of something vast, in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The atmosphere was chaos wrapped in silence. Delegates filled the crystal hall, but no one raised their voice as before. Every speech was strained, every word dragged with dread. The speaker, his hands trembling, stood before the holoscreens. You have all seen the reports. You have all heard the testimony of the survivors. The humans are awake. He paused, letting the weight of the words drop, and their silence is broken. The Valry delegate Threk slammed his scaled fist onto the table. 1 ship. Just 1, and they scattered us like sand. If the rest of their fleet rises, nothing will stop them. Nothing. Admiral Karan of the Keth Union leaned forward, his crest trembling. Then we must know the truth. How many ships are there? How strong are they? We cannot let fear alone decide the galaxy's fate, Loom the Archivist whispered, her voice softer than a sigh. The truth is already here. The signals are multiplying. What began as 1 is now hundreds. The chamber filled with gasps. The Keeper of Treaties, dressed in her eternal black, lifted her head. We are not seeing isolated movements. We are seeing a fleet assemble. The Terrans are gathering their storm. Beyond the Orion Arm, where stars grew thin and the maps turned blank, the quiet sea was no longer quiet. Talar Vor and his scout. Ships had vanished, but their last transmissions had planted fear deep in the Council's chest. Now, more scouts were sent not to engage, not to fight, but simply to watch. What they saw made entire crews weep. From the darkness, massive silhouettes emerged, ships that looked like mountains of steel, each larger than a city. Their hulls bore scars from ancient wars, yet their engines burned with new life. Blue-white lines of energy crawled across their frames like veins. They moved in silence. No chatter, no signals, only the pulsing code shared between them all. 3. Soft, 1 strong. Again, thousands of them. The alien observers named them the Ghost Armada, because no fleet of such size should have survived 10,000 years. No fleet should wake in perfect unison. No fleet should remain so silent. And yet here they were, dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, and escorts, each one moving with grim precision. Not like a newly built armada struggling to coordinate, but like an ancient beast stretching its limbs after a long sleep. The scouts sent footage back to the Council. The galaxy watched in horror as 1 human supercarrier, large enough to eclipse moons, drifted past the lens. Along its flank, rows of hangar bays opened and out poured smaller warships, sleek and sharp, like predators unleashed. Then the feed cut to static. The scouts never returned. It began quietly, on a mining colony at the rim, where tired workers drilled ice from comets. Their radios crackled. The tone came first, the heartbeat rhythm, then a voice, calm, cold, human. This is Fleet Command. Terran War Armada, Obsidian Line. We are assembled, awaiting orders. The miners fell to their knees. The voice spread. 2 smugglers, drifting in dark corridors. 2 soldiers guarding ruined frontiers. 2 aristocrats in their palaces. Everywhere, the same words repeated, in every language the humans had once known. We are assembled, awaiting orders. The galaxy realized with dread what that meant. If they were assembled, and somewhere someone was left to give the order. The chamber of the Council became a storm of fear. Who commands? Them, shouted the Valry. What if they march on us? Ack! Do we surrender now? cried another. "We must strike before it is too late." "Ack!" "No," Admiral Koran roared, silencing the hall. "Act! You saw what one ship did. If we strike now, we will not survive to tell the story. Humanity is not asking us for anything. They're not even speaking to us. This is their war, not ours." "But who is it against?" whispered Loom. "If not us, then who?" The Keeper of Treaties closed her eyes. Against whoever broke the silence. Across the quiet sea, the Terran fleet expanded. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands became legions. Everywhere they moved, the void trembled. Planets on the rim reported power surges as Terran signals brushed their systems. Traders spoke of seeing black holes drift past like shadows. Pirate bands vanished. Their ships reduced to ash by beams no one saw coming. The humans were not conquering. They were not claiming. They were assembling at the heart of the fleet. One ship rose above all others. Supercarrier so vast its engines glowed like suns. Its surface bristled with weapons. Its hull carried names written in languages no living alien could read. The Aegis, Eturan, the first and last of Earth's obsidian line carriers. A ship of legend, ship thought destroyed. But here it was, alive. And it led the storm. In the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers reached ears not meant to hear them. Power that had broken colonies, the shadow that had spread silence, stirred once more. It had sensed the humans. It had felt their awakening, and for the first time it hesitated. For centuries, it had devoured fleets unchecked. But now something older and angrier had risen, something it had failed to destroy long ago. The silence was no longer its own. Silence now belonged to Earth. As the Council debated endlessly, another broadcast cut across the stars. This time, every world heard it. The screens went black. The tone played. 3 soft pulses, 1 strong. Then a voice. "This is Terran Fleet. Command, the storm has gathered. Stand aside or be swept away. No more words, no explanations. No mercy." The message ended. And across the galaxy, leaders trembled. On the frontier, refugees looked up at the night sky and saw it hundreds of black shapes moving like a tide, their lights flickering in the rhythm of a heart too large for thee. Stars to contain, the gathering storm was here, and the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had not come to negotiate. They had come to judge. The night above Kellen Prime was alive with fear. The people of the frontier world had been told to kneel, to surrender, to await the mercy of the new masters of the galaxy. They had been told that no power could resist, that the unseen conquerors had silenced whole empires. As dawn bled across the horizon, they saw the truth with their own eyes in the sky. Alien warships hung like steel insects. Cruisers stretched across the stratosphere. Battleships blotted out stars. Their engines burned red, and their weapons shone with the energy of collapsed suns. Refugees in the streets stared upward with faces pale and hollow. Mothers pulled children into shelters. Fathers clenched tools that would never stop a plasma bolt. The first strike was seconds away. Everyone knew it. Everyone waited for the end, and then the heavens split. A sound rolled through the atmosphere, deep and slow. 3 soft pulses, 1 strong. The sound came not from the alien fleet, but from beyond, from the black edges of the sky. The alien commanders paused, their weapons still glowing, their ships still charging. Something moved behind them. At first it was only a shadow, like a mountain drifting where no mountain should be. Then light crawled along its surface, blue, silver, alive. The Terran warship slid into view. It was not a new ship. It looked old, older than any of the Council's proud fleets. Its hull was scarred, its frame heavy, its design sharp and brutal, but it radiated power. Its guns tracked with precision. Its engines hummed with the steady beat of the signal. 3 soft pulses, 1 strong. The citizens of Kellen Prime looked up and forgot to breathe. The alien fleet looked back and, for the first time, stopped laughing. A silence swept across the system, a silence deeper than fear. The Terran warship spoke. "This is Aegis Eternum. This world is under Terran protection. Leave or be erased. The voice was calm, human, heavy with command. It was not a threat. It was a fact. The alien admiral snarled. One ship. One old rusting ship. Destroy it. Show the galaxy that humanity's age is over. Weapons turned. Beams lit the sky. The first shots fell, and the battle for Kellen Prime began. The alien fleet fired in perfect unison. Plasma lances cut through the air, burning atmosphere into. Glass missiles screamed downward, aimed at the planet's defenses. The surface shook with thunder, but before the blasts could land, the Aegis Eternum came alive. From its hull, invisible walls unfolded. The plasma fire struck and vanished. Missiles disintegrated midair, torn apart by some unseen force. To the citizens below, it looked as if the sky itself had bent to protect them. Then the Terran ship fired back. A single lance of blue-white energy cut through the void. One alien battleship vanished instantly, split into glowing fragments. Another beam followed, then another, each one moving with impossible precision. Within seconds, the fleet of destroyers that had arrived to claim Kellen Prime was burning, shattering, or already gone. The refugees on the surface screamed not in fear this time, but in disbelief. The impossible had happened. A single human ship had turned the tide of the galaxy's war. Every major empire watched the battle through the Council's holoscreens. The images streamed from hidden satellites, from smuggler drones, from distant observers who dared to risk being too close. They saw the alien fleet collapse. They saw the human ship tear through warships like paper. They saw a vessel that was not just a machine, but something alive, something furious, something that remembered. Admiral Corrin rose in the council chamber, his crest trembling. This is one ship, one, and it has undone an empire's pride. Do you understand what thousands of them mean? The Valry delegate hissed. Then what do we do? Fight. Flee. Beg. The keeper of treaties spoke softly, her eyes never leaving the screen. We listen. They have spoken once already. They said, leave this world, or be erased. We must decide if we believe them. No one answered, because the council already knew what had happened to those who refused to believe. On Kellen Prime, the ground shook with every blast from the Terran guns. A great shockwave tore across the desert plains, shattering the alien landing craft before they touched the soil. In the capital city, a young boy stood on the roof of a shelter, staring at the sky. His mother tried to pull him down, but he would not move. He had grown up hearing that the galaxy was broken, that humanity was gone, that no one would come to save them. Now, above him, he saw a ship that made the stars tremble. He whispered a word he had only read in old records. Humans. The word spread through the streets like fire. Soldiers in ruined armor repeated it. Refugees whispered it. Even the alien occupiers heard it in the voices of the crowd. The war was no longer silent. It was waking, but the enemy was not blind. From beyond the system, another tear opened in the void. This time, the shape that emerged was not Terran. It was something else, something vast, something alive in ways no machine should be. The unseen conquerors revealed themselves for the first time. Their ship was not steel, it was bone. It writhed as if it breathed. Its surface shifted like living skin. The alien admiral's voice shook as he whispered its name, the Dradual. The Dradual ship released a wave of sound. It was not radio, not light, not anything the Council's instruments could describe. On Kellen Prime, people screamed and clutched their heads. The ground trembled. Entire towers cracked. The Terran ship did not move. Its lights flared brighter than the sun. The heartbeat grew louder. 3 soft pulses. One strong, then the Terran. Guns fired again. The battle became a storm. The Dradual ship released swarms of living shards, sharp as blades, fast as lightning. They struck at the Aegis Eternum, trying to tear it apart molecule by molecule. But the Terran hull flared and bent, reality around it. The shards melted into dust before they could strike. The Terran carrier responded with a new weapon. Not light, not plasma. Something else. A field of crushing gravity, focused into a single lance. It ripped through the Dradual swarm, twisting creatures into nothing, folding them into darkness. The two titans circled each other in the sky above Kellen Prime, and the people below watched in silence. One side was the terror that had ended empires. The other was the ghost of a species they thought long gone. Which one would win? The question hung heavy in the air. While the duel raged, the quiet sea burned with light. More Terran ships arrived, tearing open the void, forming lines and shapes too precise to be natural. Entire formations moved as one, thousands of ships aligning like soldiers in a parade ground. Each ship bore the same crest. Each ship pulsed with the same rhythm. 3 soft, 1 strong. The scouts that watched from afar did not even try to speak. They simply transmitted the images and prayed their signals would reach the council before the Terrans decided no one else deserved to watch. Inside, the living Dradual ship, its commander, felt something strange. For centuries, it had only known hunger, only known conquest, only known silence. Now it felt pressure. Weight. A presence that pushed against its will, for the first time in its long existence. The Dradual commander felt fear. The Terran ship spoke. Again, its voice cutting across the battlefield. You should not have come here. You should not have broken the silence. The Dradual answered, a sound like bone cracking, like flesh tearing, like a scream stretched across light years. The duel was no longer just a battle. It was judgment. The Aegis Eternum unleashed its fury. A ring of light expanded from its hull, sweeping outward. The alien battleship screamed again, its living hull boiling and tearing apart under the assault. On Kellen Prime, the sky turned white-blue. Entire mountains glowed as if lightning had struck them from every angle. The people cried out, some in fear, some in awe, some in worship. In less than a minute, the Dradual ship was gone. Nothing remained but drifting fragments of bone and ash. The Terran ship did not celebrate, did not move. It simply hovered above the world, its lights, pulsing 3 soft, 1 strong. Back in the council chamber, the delegates were pale as ghosts. They had seen it all, the duel, the destruction, the silence afterward. The keeper of treaties spoke at last. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled at her sides. They told us, she said. If they return, it will be for a reason that can crack worlds. The storm has only begun, and we do not know if it will end with mercy or with fire. The holoscreen flickered again. Another transmission. It's the same human voice. Fleet command to all units. Formation complete. Prepare for advance. The chamber fell into silence once more. But this silence was not born of fear of the Dradual. It was born of something far worse. The galaxy had surrendered to the unknown. But now, the unknown was no longer silent. The storm was here, and Earth's war fleet had only just begun to move. The council chamber had never felt so fragile. The walls, of crystal, once grown to reflect light and calm the mind, now seemed to hum with tension. The banners of 1,000 worlds still hung above the seats, but they looked faded, smaller than before. Delegates shifted in their places like nervous children. Some shouted, some whispered, but none carried the certainty that once filled this hall. They had watched the skies burn. They had watched Kellen Prime saved by a single Terran warship. They had watched the Dradual monsters of silence, destroyers of empires erased in minutes. And now, with every hour, more signals pulsed from the quiet sea. Thousands of ships, an armada without end, for the first time in 10,000 years. The Galactic Council was not the greatest power in the galaxy. The chamber erupted in chaos. We must surrender now, cried the delegate from the broken Greek alliance. If we beg, perhaps they will spare us. Beg, snarled the Valkyrie representative Threx, slamming a clawed fist against the table. Beg like prey. I would rather burn. We should unite our fleets and strike before their storm spreads further. Admiral Karan of the Keth Union rose, his crest trembling with barely restrained fury. Strike, you saw the recording, Threx? One Terran battleship cut apart 20 destroyers as if they were made of glass.
One ship?
Silence the Dradual. If this is their strength now, what would our fleets be but ash in the void? Then what do you suggest? Threx roared. Do nothing. Sit here and wait for the humans to decide if we live or die. Loom, the Thren archivist, lifted her pale fingers, her voice a whisper. That is already what we are doing. The chamber fell still. It was true. Every delegate knew it. The galaxy's fate no longer belonged to the Council. It belonged to Earth. And then, without warning, the doors opened. The chamber guards stepped aside, their faces pale, their hands shaking against their weapons. Into the hall walked a single figure. He was human. The Council had not seen one in living memory. Records showed faces, yes, but old, faded images of men and women long turned to dust. To see one in the flesh was like seeing a ghost step out of history. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a dark uniform that bore no symbols except the split circle with 3 stars, the crest of Terran Fleet Command. His boots echoed against the crystal floor, steady, unhurried, unafraid. Every eye followed him, some with hatred, some with awe, most with terror. The speaker rose from his platform, trembling. You cannot be here. This chamber is for the Human raised a hand. Silence fell instantly, as if the very air obeyed him. I will speak, he said. His voice was calm, deep, and carried across the chamber without effort. And you will listen. You called us, the human began, his eyes sweeping the room, not with your voices, not with your treaties, but with your failures. For 10,000 years you sat in this hall and told yourselves the galaxy was safe. You argued over borders. You squabbled over resources. You let monsters rise in the dark while you counted your profits. And when those monsters came, you surrendered. You gave up your fleets. You gave up your worlds. You gave up your people. He paused. The silence was heavy. You surrendered the galaxy, he said. But Earth did not surrender. Threx rose, scales flaring. We did what we had to do. We could not fight them. No one could. The human's eyes turned to him, sharp as blades. You are wrong. If you would not fight them, there is a difference. A murmur rippled across the chamber. The Keeper of Treaties stood slowly, her black robes whispering across the floor. If you have returned, Terran, then tell us this. Are you here to save us, or to rule us? The human stepped closer to the center dais, his boots echoing like thunder. We did not come for your counsel. We did not come for your throne. We came because the silence was broken. The Dradual spread it too far, too deep. Worlds fell, voices vanished. We heard it. And we answered. He leaned forward. His gaze swept over every delegate, like a blade cutting through lies. But hear this. We are not your saviors. We are not your servants. We fight for humanity, and humanity alone. Not stand aside, or be swept aside. Those are your only choices. The chamber exploded into voices. They mean to conquer us, cried one delegate. They mean to fight the Dradual, shouted another. Then let them fight. Why must we know? If they rise, they will rise over us all. The speaker hammered his staff. Desperate to restore order, but the voices kept rising. The human watched it all, his face unreadable, his eyes like storms. Admiral Karan rose above the noise. His voice boomed across the hall. Enough. Look around you. Do you not understand? We are already conquered, not by humans. By fear. The Dradual silenced our fleets, our worlds, our very will to resist. Yet one human ship shattered them. If Earth fights, we should stand with them more, at the very least, stay out of their path. Threx snarled. And what if they turn on us when they are done? What if we exchange one master for another? The human finally spoke again. If humanity wished to rule you, we would not have left you to your council for 10,000 years. His voice was steady, but there was an edge of steel beneath it. We do not want your thrones. We do not want your banners. We want silence ended. That is all. Loom whispered to the keeper, too soft for others to hear. Do you believe him? The keeper's hands trembled. I do not know. But I know this. Whether he speaks truth or lies, we cannot stop him. That moment, the holoscreens above. The chamber lit up. The feed came from the quiet sea. Thousands of black Terran ships filled the stars, each one pulsing with light. 3 soft pulses, 1 strong. The rhythm echoed through the chamber until every heart beat with it. The human looked up at the screens, then back down at the council. You see the storm, he said. It will move with or without you, Shtuz. Now, stand aside or stand in its path. Without waiting for a reply, the human turned and walked from the chamber. His boots echoed until the great doors closed behind him. No one followed. No one spoke. No one breathed. The council had broken in. The streets of the capital, rumors spread like wildfire. Human has returned. The Terrans walk again. The storm is here, on distant colonies. Refugees looked up at the sky and swore they could see black ships moving among the stars. In the void, the Terran armada prepared. Engines flared. Weapons glowed. Formations locked into place. The silence of the galaxy was over. The question that haunted every world, every leader, every soul, was simple. Would the humans leave them alive? Or erase them with the same cold fury they had shown the Dradual? The Council no longer had the power to decide. The galaxy had always believed in strength. Strength of fleets, strength of empires, strength of thrones built from blood and fire. But after Kellen Prime, after the silence of the Dradual was broken by one human ship, that belief began to crack. Entire worlds whispered of Terran. Warships gathering in the quiet sea. Entire systems watched the sky and swore they saw shadows drifting among the stars. Yet, there was one empire that did not kneel. In the chamber of the Zirith Dominion, the greatest. Surviving empire of the age, their ruler rose before a hall of armored generals. His cloak was stitched with gold, his eyes burned with pride, and his voice thundered like war drums. The galaxy trembles at Terran shadows, he spat, but we do not tremble. We are Zirith. Our fleets are endless, our weapons unmatched, our banners unbroken. If the humans wish to rise again, then let them. We will crush them as we crush the Thren, the Valry, the Keth. No ghosts from Earth will rule us. The generals roared their approval. Armies cheered across their worlds. Orders spread like fire. Assemble every ship, every soldier, every weapon. The Zirith would prove to the galaxy that the Terrans were nothing but myth dressed in steel. And so, the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen gathered in the void. 10,000. Warships, carriers, dreadnoughts, siege platforms. Weapons built to tear apart planets. The Zirith Dominion believed no power could stand against them. They were wrong, on the edge of the quiet sea. The Zirith Armada stretched across light years, its ships forming a wall of fire and steel. There, engines burned bright. Their banners filled the void, and then the darkness stirred. At first it was only the pulse. 3 soft beats, 1 strong. Over and over, then came the shadows. Shapes sliding from the dark massive hulls glinting with silver veins. One by one, the Terran fleet emerged. Hundreds, then thousands, then legions. Their black armor swallowed. The stars, their lights burned in perfect rhythm. The Aegis Eternum, the obsidian supercarrier, drifted at the heart of the storm. Its engines glowed like suns. Its guns shimmered with power that seemed older than time itself. The Terran Armada was awake. The Zirith Admiral opened the channel. His voice was cold and proud. This is the Dominion. You are trespassing on our skies. Withdraw or face destruction. A long moment, the only reply was the pulse. 3 soft. 1 strong, then a human voice answered, calm and steady. This is Fleet Command. You broke the silence. Now face judgment. The channel went dead. The Zirith Admiral's jaw clenched. So be it. Fire everything. The Zirith Armada unleashed its fury. Thousands of beams lit the void, streaking across space like rivers of fire. Missiles poured from launch bays in swarms too dense to count. Planet crackers, built to shatter moons, roared into ignition. The Terrans did not move. Their ships hovered in silence, their lights pulsing in rhythm. The weapons struck their hulls and vanished, absorbed, deflected, erased.
Admirals.
Screamed for more, demanded every cannon fire. Demanded the humans drown in fire, and then the storm answered. The Terran fleet opened fire, not with chaos, not with desperation, with precision, with purpose. The weapons older and sharper than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Blue-white beams carved through dreadnoughts. Gravity lances folded carriers into dust. Swarms of Terran drones poured from hangars, each one faster and deadlier than a Zereth fighter. Within minutes, the sky was burning. The Zereth. Generals watched in horror as their proud fleets crumbled. 10 ships gone. 50. 100. More. The Terran armada moved like a machine. Every ship firing in perfect rhythm. Every formation striking as if commanded by a single mind. No wasted shots. No hesitation. Only destruction. One Terran battleship carved through an entire Zereth wing alone. Another erased 3 carriers in a single volley. The Aegis Eternum unleashed its full fury, a wave of energy so vast it burned entire squadrons from existence. The Zereth had believed they would crush ghosts. Instead, they were learning what it meant to face the storm. On the Dominion's capital world, citizens watched the sky. Their holoscreens filled with the battle, streaming from orbit. Families huddled in silence. Children clutched their parents. Priests whispered prayers. They saw their fleets burning. They saw their proud banners torn apart. And they realized with cold dread that no wall of steel could protect them from what was coming. "Are they gods?" the child asked, staring at the glowing Terran ships. Her father shook his head, but his voice broke as he whispered, "No, they are worse." The Zereth admiral refused to retreat. "Form the shield line," he bellowed. "Bring the planet crackers forward. We will not yield." A wall of ships moved into place, weapons glowing brighter than suns. The fleet concentrated all its firepower. On the Aegis Eternum, the void erupted with light. For a moment, it seemed the humans might falter. For a moment, hope flickered in Zereth hearts. And then the storm broke through. The Aegis Eternum unleashed its ultimate weapon. A spear of pure light, a lance of annihilation, erupted from its core. It swept across the shield line, erasing every ship it touched. Planet crackers, proud weapons of terror, shattered like glass. The wall collapsed. The Dominion's last hope crumbled. The battle was over in less than an hour. The Zereth, armada 10,000 warships strong, was gone. Their wreckage drifted across the void, burning embers against the cold dark. Survivors fled in silence, too broken to fight, too terrified to speak. The Terran fleet did not pursue. They did not taunt. They simply hovered in formation, their lights pulsing, 3 soft, 1 strong. Judgment had been delivered. Across the stars, the council watched the fall. Entire empires shivered in fear. Delegates clutched their banners, knowing they meant nothing now. Admiral Corrin whispered, his voice filled with awe and dread. "The strongest empire has fallen. If the Zereth could not stand, no one can." The Keeper of Treaties lowered her head. "The storm is not finished. This is only the beginning." Loom the Archivist whispered the words that spread like fire across the galaxy. "The age of empires is over. The age of humanity has begun." As the wreckage of the Zereth burned, the Terran fleet turned. Their engines flared. Their formations shifted. The storm was moving again. No one knew where.
No one knew when.
They only knew that wherever the humans marched next, silence would follow. The galaxy prayed, because Earth had shown its hand. Mercy was not part of it. The galaxy had never been so quiet. Not after a war, not after a battle, not even after. The Dragial's hunger had consumed whole sectors. There had always been screams, signals, last stands, desperate cries. But now, nothing. The Zereth Dominion's fleet's 10,000 ships, the largest force left in the galaxy, was gone, erased. not defeated. Not scattered, gone. Their wreckage still burned across the stars, but no survivors dared speak of revenge. The council's channels were silent. The refugee lanes were silent. Even the Dradual, once the bringers of silence themselves, had fallen. Quiet. The galaxy had surrendered. And yet above Kellen Prime, the Terran fleet still gathered. Their black holes stretched across the void like a wall of night. Their lights pulsed in rhythm. 3 soft, 1 strong, over and over again. The sound of an ancient heart. The sound of something that had waited too long. Everyone waited for the next move. Everyone feared the same question. Where will the storm strike next? On the crystal world of Valen Prime, home of the Galactic Council, the sky was clear. Twin suns burned over towers that touched the clouds. Refugees filled the plazas, carrying what little they had left. The air was thick with the sound of prayers in 100 languages. Then, light changed. It began as a flicker, like a shadow passing over one of the suns. People looked up. They saw nothing. The sun still burned bright. The sky still glowed. Blue, but the air vibrated. The ground hummed. A low rhythm rolled across the city. 3 soft pulses. 1 strong. The sound made glass tremble in its frames. Children screamed. Elders clutched their chests. Soldiers raised their weapons, though none knew what to point at. And then the sky tore open. It did not open with a flash of light or a burst. A flame, it simply folded back, as if the universe itself were peeling away to reveal something hidden behind it. 1 ship emerged, then another, then another. The people gasped as the Terran fleet revealed itself. Hundreds of ships. Thousands. Carriers larger than continents. Dreadnoughts, whose shadows stretched across the planet's oceans. Smaller warships swarmed around them like hunters circling prey. And at the center of it all, larger than anything, the galaxy had ever seen, the Aegis Eternum drifted into orbit. Its black hole blotted out the suns. Silver veins glowed like rivers of fire. Its engines burned so bright that the oceans themselves shimmered. The storm had come. Inside the chamber of crystal. The council had already fractured. The delegate from the Great Alliance knelt on the floor, his hands raised in surrender. We must beg for mercy now, before they strike. The Valry delegate Threx hissed in fury. Begging will not save us. It will come for us all, one by one. Better to die fighting than live as slaves. A dozen voices rose in answer. Some shouted for war. Some screamed for peace. Some wept. The speaker hammered his staff against the dais, but no one listened. The calm light of the crystal walls flickered, able to swallow the chaos. Then the great doors opened again. The same human entered. He walked with the same steady steps, boots echoing across the floor. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with something that made even the proud Valry fall silent. He stopped in the center of the chamber. I told you once, he said, his voice rolling across the hall. Stand aside, or be swept aside. The Keeper of Treaties rose, her black robes whispering. We have seen your power, Terran. We have seen the fall of the Dradual. We have seen the end of the Zereth. But you must answer us now. What do you want? The human lifted his head. For a long moment he said nothing. The chamber held its breath. Finally he spoke. 10,000 years ago we warned you. We said, the galaxy was not a game. We said your wars would wake something in the dark. You laughed at us. You mocked us. You called us monsters, deathworlders, savages, and then you silenced us. You thought our silence was weakness. He raised a hand. A small device glowed in his palm. The holoscreens flickered, the chamber filled with new images that froze every delegate in place. They saw Earth, not the ruined husk they remembered, but a world alive, its oceans glowing, its skies filled with towers of steel and glass. They saw shipyards the size of continents, cradling vessels larger than any the galaxy had ever built. They saw fleets rising from beneath oceans, from caverns carved into moons, from black vaults buried in dead worlds. The human's voice cut through the silence. Our silence was not surrender. It was preparation. Admiral Karan rose, his crest trembling. Then this war, this storm. It is your war, not ours. The human's eyes turned to him. It is our war, but it is also yours. The Dradual do not stop. They do not bargain. They do not listen. Consume. You surrendered to survive. We burned to survive, and we endured. Threx hissed from across the chamber. And when you are done with them, what then? Will you turn your fire? On us. The human looked at him, and for a moment the air felt sharp, as if every breath could cut. Then he spoke. When the Draduals are gone, the storm will end. But hear this, there will be no more wars, no more empires, no more councils built on fear. If you raise fleets against each other again, if you spill blood across the stars, then we will return, and we will end it. The chamber froze. The speaker whispered, You mean to rule us? The human shook his head slowly. No, we mean to silence you. If you cannot live in peace, then you will not live at all. Far from the chamber, on the burning edges of the galaxy, not everyone believed. A cluster of lesser empires, desperate to prove their strength, rallied what ships they had left. They gathered on the world of Tyreek Prime, fortress world carved into mountains of metal and fire. We will not bow to humans, their commander roared. We are not prey. We are not weak. We will fight, and the galaxy will see that we are. Not afraid. They launched everything, battleships, carriers, siege cannons, swarms of fighters. The sky above Tyreek Prime turned red with fire, and then the Terran fleet arrived. This time it was not one ship, it was 10, then 50, then 100. They appeared in silence, their black holes cutting through the void, their lights pulsing. In the rhythm of the heart, 3 soft, 1 strong. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, Tyreek Prime was a glowing scar across the stars. The fortress mountains were gone. The commanders were gone, and the Terran fleet did not land. They did not claim the world, did not speak. They simply turned and left. Word spread faster than light. The Zirith are gone. Tyreek Prime is ash. The humans are unstoppable. One by one, the empires of the galaxy bent their banners. Some sent envoys to the council begging for protection. Others simply sent messages into the void addressed to Earth, though no reply ever came. The galaxy had surrendered. Not to the Dradual, not to the Zirith, but to silence itself to the silence of Earth and the storm it carried. Back in the council chamber, the human returned. Once more, he stood in the center of the hall, silent, his eyes sweeping across the delegates. We have shown you enough, he said. The storm moves to its true purpose. Stand aside. Do not follow. Do not interfere. When this war is finished, we will decide what remains. The speaker tried to speak, but his voice failed. The delegates looked at each other. Some wanted to protest. None did. The human turned, and again he walked away. No guards tried to stop him. No delegate called after him. The doors closed, and the council knew it was broken. Beyond the quiet sea, the Terran fleet turned. Their engines burned white-hot. Their lights pulsed in rhythm, their formations locked tighter than ever before. 3 soft, 1 strong. Across the galaxy, systems fell silent not from the Dradual, but from fear. Entire fleets refused to move. Entire empires refused to fight. Refugees poured into the core worlds, whispering the same words again and again. The humans are coming. The storm was no longer gathering. The storm was marching. In the deep dark, the Draduals stirred once more. They had silenced countless empires, had fed on fear. They had believed themselves eternal. But when the Terran fleet arrived, Dradual learned the truth. The battle was not a battle. It was an execution. The Terran ships moved as one, their weapons firing in rhythm, their drones striking with impossible speed. The Dradual screamed across the void, but their screams were swallowed by the storm. World by world, swarm by swarm, the Dradual burned in days. The threat that had silenced the galaxy for a century was gone. Not defeated, not pushed back, erased, and then silence returned. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of the gradual, a new silence. A silence filled with awe, with terror, with the knowledge that the galaxy's fate was no longer its own. Terran fleet hovered above the galactic capital. The Aegis Eternum blotted out the suns. Its lights pulsed in rhythm, 3 soft, 1 strong. The human commander's voice echoed across every channel, in every language, in every corner of the galaxy. This is Terran Fleet Command. The war is over. The galaxy has surrendered. Hear us now. No empire will rise again. No council will wage war again. From this day, the silence belongs to us. Break it, and you will not exist. The message cut. The fleet did not fire. The fleet did not move. It simply waited, its lights pulsing like a heartbeat. On worlds across the galaxy, people knelt. Some in relief, some in fear, some in worship. The Drashel were gone, but the storm that destroyed them now hung above their skies. No one spoke in the council chamber. No one dared. The keeper of treaties finally whispered, her voice trembling, "The galaxy has surrendered, and humanity has shattered the silence." The crystal walls of the chamber glowed faintly, drinking in the fear, the awe, the despair. The hope dot outside, the Terran fleet burned against the stars like a second dawn. The storm had come and passed, but the question remained with this: new silence last, or was it only the pause before the storm rose again? The galaxy held its breath, and in that breathless pause, the age of empires ended. The age of humanity had begun.